Hi everyone, Al the Psych here. Um, Got a video for you as usual for informational purposes only. Okay, so what I want to do is revisit trauma. I talked about trauma in a previous video, and what I made a small mention of, sometimes maybe you need to avoid memory work, and I want to revisit that a little bit and go into a little bit more uh, detail. Okay, so if I'm trying to be my own therapist, if I'm going solo, so to speak, trying to treat myself, I probably would just want to stick to being able to be good at learning how to relax as opposed to going back and working on memory issues related to the trauma and redeveloping a narrative or coming up with a narrative of the trauma. I would really want to work on getting good at being able to relax to the point where I could relax even if I was faced with what would normally be a stressful, anxiety-producing situation for me. If you remember in the previous video, I talked about reciprocal inhibition, where I can't be relaxed and stressed, or at least very stressed, at the same time. So if I can really develop that ability to become relaxed and become relaxed in what were typically stressful situations, I'm going to be able to deal with a lot of stressors and anxiety-producing situations out there, or what would previously have been anxiety-producing situations. Okay. The idea of working on my own and revisiting painful memories may tend to re-traumatize and resensitize me, if that's a word. Maybe I'm just making it up, but if you're sensitized to a situation and you keep on revisiting it unsuccessfully, it's just going to pretty much just heighten your sensitivity to it. I don't want to reinforce that anxiety that I've experienced. So if I'm going back to a trauma and I'm not dealing with it correctly, maybe I'm just kind of hyping up the sensitivity that I have to that trauma. So that's going to be counterproductive. Okay. Sometimes it's just important to work on forward-looking issues and to get through them. In fact, the one seminar I took online that Eric Gentry talked about is a large portion of people that go through trauma don't actually have to do any of that backward-looking therapy. They can kind of go forward and just deal with situations that come up as they arise. And I went back and I revisited Glenn R. Schiraldi's book called the Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Source Book. And he listed several conditions in which an individual should not engage in memory work, including but not necessarily limited to the following. So if you're dealing with substance addiction, self-destructive behaviors, SIBs, self-injurious behaviors, or suicidal tendencies. If your behavior is such that you get amped up and you threaten people, or if there's basically the threat to your mental health, where you can easily become overwhelmed. If you don't have a support system, no strong therapeutic alliance, these are indicators to tell you that, okay, maybe memory work, developing the narrative, maybe this isn't the time to do it. Okay, so I can even remember years ago when I was at a workshop, and it wasn't really related to trauma so much. Well, it was related to anxiety, panic disorders. So there's an overlap there. And I remember um, that the presenter, a psychologist, gave an example of when he was working with an individual that would get very anxious when he would drive over bridges. And he told his client to, well, just keep driving over uh, the bridges as many times as possible. And that repeated exposure, he said, that repeated exposure would eventually reduce and extinguish the anxiety. Okay, so that was his recommendation, this type of exposure therapy. So did this work? No, it did not work. Okay, it actually made things worse because the client became more sensitized to driving over bridges. Every time he drove over a bridge, he became anxious, and then he became more anxious. He did not become less anxious. He didn't have the tools and the techniques yet to deal with that anxiety. So he's basically associating this panic with going over bridges and just reinforcing it. So psychologists realized that this form of exposure therapy needed some major changes or some other components to it. So he then worked with the client on helping him learn to relax, to calm down in these situations. So he taught him how to first just learn to relax, then how to relax in a situation that had a little bit of stress to it, and then still relax in a situation that had even a little bit more stress to it, and more stress to it. And so he learned how to relax in situations that in the past might have been a little stressful for him. Okay. And he worked with his client on staying relaxed as he visualized going over small bridges. Then he worked with his client on staying relaxed as he visualized going over medium-sized bridges. And he worked with his patient on relaxing as he went over big bridges. Then the client worked on staying relaxed while he actually, in vivo, went over bridges in real life, starting with a small bridge and bigger bridge and a big bridge. Okay. So, did that work? Yes, it did work. Now he was given the tools to regulate his emotions. So now he was basically in control, and he was then able to go over the bridges. And along with that, the strategy of learning how to relax, desensitizing. He worked on cognitive restructuring, reframing the situation. Some mantras like I can do this, I can relax through this. So he had different things going on. He didn't send him into a situation anymore like he did initially. He didn't send him into the situation again where he was unprepared. Now he was prepared. And I think this ties in with whether or not you're ready to, if we're talking about trauma, PTSD, if you're ready to revisit, those memories. Some clients, some patients do not need to even do that. Some do. But the groundwork has to be laid before you revisit that. So, okay, I wanted to make sure I got that out there because I don't want people just thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to go back and I'm going to revisit those memories, and I'm going to tackle the problem head on. Okay, first of all, if you're going solo, wouldn't want to do that. Second of all, maybe touch bases with a therapist who actually works with patients with PTSD. So if you got any questions, concerns about what I said, differences of opinion, go ahead, put it in the comments. I'd be interested in reading about it. Okay, talk to you later.